$10 in the first 6 months. It wasn't an amazing success, but I did learn about SEO.
And there's nothing sweeter than that first dollar that you make online, the validation.
Exactly. You can't get a breast augmentation on the NHS. Whatever opinion you read online, there's going to be somebody else that says the opposite.
Today, I am thrilled to have Geoff Meakin, also known as the Healthcare SEO, on the show. Geoff is an expert in helping private health clinics in the UK attract more patients through strategic and cost-effective SEO techniques, leveraging his extensive experience in both healthcare and digital marketing. Today, he will be sharing invaluable insights on how clinics can optimize their online presence to boost bookings and grow their practices. Welcome to the show, Geoff.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for inviting me on. It's great to be here.
Yeah, we're actually both melting away because we're having like probably the only 1 week heat wave that England will have, aren't we?
Yeah, we will storms and rain next week, I'm sure.
Yeah. So we have to make the most of it, even though it's unbearable. Okay, Geoff, tell us how you got started in healthcare SEO.
Yeah, sure. So I actually did a degree back in early 2000s, which was a publishing degree. Part of that was marketing, which really clicked for me. I was really interested in the marketing side of things. So when I finished my degree, I thought I'd go into the marketing route, but I didn't really enjoy it very much, like job applications and stuff. And so I thought, do you know what? I'm going to do something different. I'm going to do something which is rewarding. And my brother was a paramedic. I thought maybe I'll go into healthcare, but he had to wear a stab vest. I didn't fancy stab vest. So instead I went into surgical theatres. And I did surgical theatres, both NHS and in private sector, for about 7 years, around that sort of time. Then my wife got sick with our fourth child. I had to leave my job. So we were in a situation where we had 3 kids, fourth one on the way. I had no money coming in, so I did what everybody does at that stage. I set up my website. It was an affiliate website, and I made I think it was about $10 in the first 6 months. So it wasn't an amazing success, but I did learn about SEO, and I was like, it really clicked with my kind of background doing publishing and marketing. And I was like, yeah, this is for me, this SEO sort of thing. People were coming to me, they were asking questions about it, because back then you didn't need to know too much about SEO to be considered an expert. And then, I just decided to tie that together with my healthcare experience. And that's kind of how it all started.
Wow. Okay. And now I assume you're doing this full time and you've never looked back.
Full time. Yeah. In the early days, I think I probably looked back more than now.
Yeah.
It's always a big risk when you go out on your own, but, these days I never look back.
And there's nothing sweeter than that first dollar that you make online, the validation.
Exactly.
So now then, what sort of healthcare businesses are you doing SEO for now? In terms of like the actual like health side of it, so like what specific health sectors are you working with, and then are you doing more local, national, or a mix of both of those sorts of SEO?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a mixture, to be quite honest. I mostly work with private clinics in the UK, so they're usually small to medium. I'm not going after like the big hospitals. I prefer to work with the smaller clients. So obviously a big part of that is local, ties in with that very closely. I also have some kind of national clients as well who offer more in terms of like medcoms, medical software, those sort of things.
Okay.
But I think the bread and butter of it is really like private clinics.
Private clinics. Okay. So that's obviously like non-NHS, nothing to do with the NHS. This is clinics that people can pay for via private medical insurance, I'm assuming.
Exactly. Yeah. I have just started working with an NHS clinic, and I have spoken to NHS clinics before, but the problem is a lot of NHS clinics, they're not very up on marketing. They see it as they're very government controlled and their pathways are all laid out. But some forward-thinking NHS clinics are starting to get involved now more with social media and SEO. So it seems like that's a growing sector. So watch this space on that one.
Yeah, I mean the NHS did lose a few billion quid when they tried to change over the computer system, didn't they? So it's So what's the primary goal then, would you say, from the clinics that you work with? What are they looking for as like an ROI on investment in SEO?
Yeah, so obviously they want to increase the number of appointments that they get, the number of bookings and consultations. In terms of ROI for SEO, I've been able to achieve like 3 times ROI, which is like fantastic, sometimes up to 5 times ROI. So there's a huge opportunity there for a lot of private clinics. And I think part of that is due to the fact that a lot of people will type in their symptoms to Google search. It's funny, we don't want to talk to our partners or our friends about a lot of issues, but we are quite comfortable sharing that with Google and Googling your symptoms. So if you can be part of that journey and educating people and getting these private clinics seen when they're looking for their symptoms, it's actually a huge boost. I think probably a lot more than social media and a lot more than a lot of clinicians actually realize.
Okay, that's interesting. That actually brings me on to my next area of discussion, which would be then blog content. And I think that's really interesting. You seem to have given away your secret sauce there, saying that it's... Can you talk to me then about how you are approaching a content strategy? And I'm also intrigued how that plays into local search as well, in terms of like symptom-based keywords.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a pretty open book. I probably do give away but basically the way that I tend to do it is I use what's called the avalanche method. It's a method that Carl Roof talks about, or pioneered. I'm not sure the exact case, but basically the idea is you look at how much traffic a website is getting, and then you base the keywords that you're going after upon that sort of traffic. So for example, if there's a condition like a hip replacement, it's going to take a long time and probably a lot of money and resources to rank number one for hip replacement. That's not going to happen overnight. But if you narrow it down and make it a lot more specific, so hip replacement in Birmingham, for instance, then you've got a much greater chance of ranking for that particular keyword. So there's a lot of judgment involved in the keyword research and saying, this is the area that we're targeting, this is the procedure that we're targeting, and whether it is going to be just private patients that they take on, or whether it's private, a mixture of private and NHS, because obviously if it's private, then you want to have that term private in as much of the optimized kind of H1s, all of the headings, URL, title, all of that sort of stuff.
Okay.
So that's kind of how I start structuring it. And then as far as you're saying with planning out a content marketing strategy, again, using the same method, seeing how much traffic the site's already getting and how realistic it is to target those terms, and then separating it out so that you're looking at what are the main terms people are searching for before an operation. Are they worried about recovery times? Are they worried about how it's going to look afterwards, particularly for the aesthetic industry, nose jobs, boob jobs, all of that sort of thing. Other things like what it's going to be like in advance, how long do they have to fast for this procedure, what's involved in the procedure, what are the different options for the procedure, cost of procedure, all these things. There's loads and loads of different routes that you can go down. And it's really a case of saying what's going to tie in best with the services that we're offering and trying to be as specific as possible. Does that answer the question? I feel like that's a bit rounded.
No, that's great. We've had Kyle on as a guest on this show as well before, so I'm familiar with the avalanche method. I think it's from quite an old forum post. I guess now you could also just find keywords that have like at least 2 or 3 results on page 1 with like a DR under, let's say, a certain amount, and you're trying to almost match your site's strength and authority to the terms that you can realistically rank for.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's another method for doing it. I know that a lot of people like to do it that way. I mean, one of the things I've noticed from my research is that Google very often will have up to 9 sites or 8 or 9 sites which are really high DR, and then 1 which is a much lower DR. So that, like you say, can give you a feel for, can I be that one site? Can I make my page more optimized than this one site? And then you can work it back that way. Yeah, certainly. That'll work in a lot of instances, I think. And
I imagine you said about having the word private so that's the search intent then. So the searcher is actively looking, let's do boobs, because that's always interesting. Actively looking for a private boob job in Birmingham, let's say, and that would be the target keyword for a local clinic that you're doing SEO for in Birmingham that's offering that sort of cosmetic surgery. Well,
that boob job's an interesting one, because most people
tell me about boobs. I'm all ears.
This conversation's going in a weird direction. So most people realize already that you can't usually get a breast augmentation on the NHS. It's just, that's one of the many things that the NHS has cut back on massively over the last 10 years or 15 years, whatever it might be.
That's unless it's affecting the health, I suppose, for
exactly. And a breast reduction as well is the same situation. So getting those on the NHS is possible, but most people know that they're going to have to pay for it. So that's kind of it's almost the opposite. You would want to rank for people searching for boob job or breast augmentation. You wouldn't necessarily have to have private in that particular phrase, because people don't tend to search for private breast augmentation.
But then that's in the intent anyway. That's understanding the intent behind that particular keyword anyway.
Yeah, exactly. That's a huge part of it, is knowing this procedure has this intent, this procedure has that intent, and this procedure. Maybe people are a bit confused about, whether it's A or B,
Okay. And would you say then that this is, any of us that have been in SEO for any length of time know that you'll have certain clients that have a full understanding of SEO and they're operating within an industry that has a full understanding of SEO, and therefore it's very competitive and, difficult, not doable, but everybody has to sort of understand the time that it takes. Do you service some clients in areas where the competition it's wide open and you can just come in and really optimize, get Google business profile, and you're away to the races in a quick period of time?
Sadly, there aren't that many where it's like you just optimize the Google business profile and job done, unfortunately. And to be honest, even in those instances where it is a nice, easy, quick wins, like with a lot of clients, it's always more, bigger.
Yeah.
So you then, if you rank in within one service area, you then want to expand it out, and there's almost no limit to how big you can grow a site. Certainly there are particular niches where it's more easy, and there's others where it's more difficult. I think healthcare generally is probably less competitive than something like SaaS, where people are very clued up. Everyone knows they need SEO, but that's a positive and a negative, because you have to kind of educate people about, hey, this is actually really important for your business. This is something that you should be doing. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword, I think.
This is fascinating to me. I want to dive into so much. So let's take the Birmingham clinic, which is offering breast augmentation treatments, and I imagine a huge portion of that content marketing strategy is going to be based on local terms then, as would be for almost all of your local clients in this space. How much of an actual ROI in terms of bookings are clients seeing, and over what period of time? So let's say you start a new content strategy targeting a particular keyword, you get that post to rank. I also want to dive into the strategy outside of just content that you're using to rank. Are we seeing clients getting bookings, new signups, new business from SEO?
Yeah, absolutely. Typical timelines I tell clients is 3 months minimum. If it's a brand new site, then 6 month minimum, with real visible results about 6 to 9 months. 6 months if it's an existing site, 9 months if it's a brand new site. That's by that point, you should be getting a consistent flow of leads. Yeah, does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's great. Just before we leave the content area then, where are you, for a local client, are you producing all content targeting local keywords, or are you also producing like more pillar content with a more national appeal? Like, how are you balancing that?
Yeah, so what I try and do is create landing pages which are very hyper local, very local specific, and then the content around that doesn't have to be as local focused, because that's going to be content that, let's take breast augmentation again as an example. So you're doing your breast augmentations in Birmingham, you've got a page which is really well optimized for breast augmentation Birmingham. Your content around that is going to be, what do the scars look like afterwards? Now, that's going to be the same for people that are in Birmingham as it is for Manchester, London, wherever. And if you can answer that and get traffic to your site, give a good user experience, then it's my understanding that Google will then rank your pages higher, because you're already getting traffic to that site. People are engaging with it. So you're more likely to rank your landing page higher in search. The thing that I do as well is to make sure that all that content that you're creating links back to your main pillar page using exact match anchor text. So private breast augmentation, Birmingham.
Exact match. No variation,
exactly.
Really?
Yeah. I know there's a lot of people that say, like, so that's just for internal links. I know there's some people that worry about internal links and they think, oh, can you be over optimized for internal links? Personally, I haven't seen it. I don't know. I've never seen any examples of it. So yeah, I go full out.
Yeah,
exact match.
I saw something today. I can't remember if it was yesterday or the day before. Someone, I'm not sure if it was Matt Diggity or maybe it was a post on Twitter. Somebody said that they'd seen some research that like what one would deem to be like a healthy looking variation anchor text strategy is actually really backfiring, because it's actually quite a telltale sign that you're manipulating the rankings by varying. Whereas actually in reality you would use exact match if you were trying to send people to the same place.
Yeah, I mean, it's so difficult. Everything, whatever opinion you read online, there's going to be somebody else that says the opposite. So
you have to test.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. You've got to test. And I think that's why it really helps to be in one niche, because it's like maybe that's exactly the case for other industries like SaaS or e-commerce or whatever, but we know that the algorithm works very differently across different verticals. So I think it really helps to be in one vertical and say, well, it's never happened to me, it's never been fine. But, I'm just talking about internal links as well. I think there's no way I would go and make all my external backlinks to the site the same anchor, because
we'll get to links. We'll get to links. Are you creating landing pages for every individual service then? Is that how you would set it up?
Yeah, so what I do is I sit down with the clients right at the outset and I say, look, what are the most important services to you? Which ones do you want to push the hardest? Because a lot of them will have a lot of different services. If you're trying to do all of them, you go so much slower. It's like, whereas if you focus on one or two, you can get much better results much quicker. So I always try and pin them down on one, maximum of two services and just focus in on those initially. But ideally, yes, you want to have one landing page for each service and for each location as well. So maybe you've got breast augmentation Birmingham, breast augmentation Manchester, wherever it might be.
Okay. And then you're going to build out your supporting content, internally link everything back to that landing page. And then you're going to see some increases in rankings and the clients are going to get more bookings and everyone's going to be happy. Yeah. Okay. That sounds good. Right. Let's get to links. This is very interesting because like you said, everything is different niche to niche. We know that gambling sites, casino sites have to allocate a huge portion of their budget and build links continuously. Some niches, link building is not needed anywhere near as much. So in the local health space, let's start with what sorts of links are you starting with, let's say with a new client, and how would you go about that, checking their existing link profile? I'd also be interested to know if you do any disavows based on the existing link profile as well. Yeah,
disavows, I don't do disavows. I know there's a lot of debate around it. Some do, some don't. I think it came out in the Google leak that there was some stuff about disavows, but I've done it sometimes for sites in the past. I've never seen it's made a huge amount of difference. But again, that might vary from one industry to another. I wouldn't tell people, unless you've got no clue what you're doing, then, if you've got some idea of what you're doing, then I think it's fine to do disavows, but it's not worth my time, to be quite honest, from what I've seen. And then as far as getting links, like the initial links, I think certainly for local, getting a Google My Business profile, very important. And this all ties back to EEAT as well. So Google Business Profile, social media links, citations, whatever you want to call them.
So you make sure they have the foundational links then, exactly. The first check. Yeah. And I imagine they do, many clients in this space, or are you surprised?
They do, yeah, some clients kind of change hands, like one person will be running it one year and then somebody else will be doing it the other year. So you do find that kind of social media channels change, or they drop off, or they're not being used anymore. They get called X instead of Twitter, all this type of stuff. So just making sure that they're all up to date is obviously important. And then there's a number of healthcare specific directories as well. Okay. So things like Doctify, Top Doctors, I Want Great Care. That's three of the big ones right there, which I think give you the relevance links as well. They're pretty quick to set up. They give you that relevance boost. And then, directory links and CQC as well, who are the governing body. They make sure that private clinics, or in fact, all clinics, are run to a good standard. And they link to websites as well. So again, that's another indication that it's a proper website. Yeah, that's kind of where I start off from a foundation level.
Okay. And then you touched upon EEAT there. This is something we're a big proponent of. Obviously, it's a big part of Google, and in YMYL niches specifically, it's essential. Not just algorithmically, but also, if a Google search quality rater hits the site, they want to see that it's a legitimate business, especially in this site, especially if it's a boob augmentation clinic. So the thing is, this is an interesting sector because we have many clients that are just, they don't have any visible EEAT, and actually they have very little actual EEAT, which you can even begin to consider to implement onto the website. Whereas at least you're operating in a space where, the actual EEAT is there. They are qualified medical professionals that have existing bricks and mortar businesses. What do you do to make sure that that's looking good, and what improvements, if any, do you sometimes need to make?
Yeah, so I did some tests on this around EEAT, and what I found was that actually the bar for EEAT is really quite low. Having an about page, having a contact us, having privacy policy, terms of service, all those sort of things that you would have as a proper website. Yeah. If they're all there, I think you get some amount of credit from Google to say, look, you've put the effort into creating social profile links, into creating some legal disclaimers, you've got a contact form, you've got an about page, you've got a person cited, and I think you can boost all of those things using schema markup to say explicitly, this is Dr. so-and-so, and this is their accreditations, all of that kind of thing. So
would that be on the author profiles then, the schema markup for that?
Ideally, yeah, ideally. And also your blog content as well. Like for me personally, I don't ever put blog content up that hasn't been verified by somebody with a medical background. So then it's kind of down to them. And, if you're doing that, it only makes sense to highlight that and say, this content has been medically reviewed by...
And that would just be someone from the team, I assume, then? Someone from the...
Yeah, exactly. And then, schema markup for that, and away to the races.
Okay, so we have foundational links sorted. EAT is there. Now we're going to start looking at actual link building. I'm really interested to see what sort of link building that you're doing for clients, what you found to work the best, and anything else interesting about link building within this space.
Sure. So for medical link building, I've never had much luck with that whole kind of spam mass outreach approach. I think that a lot of clinical medical professionals look at that and they go, I have no idea what this is or whether this is a scam or whatever. So I kind of sidestep that one. I go more into like what used to be Harrow. Now I think it's Connectively.
Yeah.
Looking for journo requests. That's a really good one. I mean, you often get really, really high DR sites asking for medical professionals. So that's a fantastic spot to get links from. And also, just the same as you would with any other site, really. Things like podcasts, things like events. Often I have a nutritionist client that was recently asked to speak at a major event. So you always have to be reminding them that if you get invited to these things, make sure you ask for a link. So those are kind of the main routes that I go down. Another thing is to look out for topical stuff as well. And I think this is probably more your domain, like when there's a movement or a piece of news going a certain way. Like I think a couple of years ago, it was turkey teeth was the big trend that everyone started looking up because people were going to Turkey to get their teeth done.
Yeah.
That's the sort of story that you can really jump on. That's kind of where I'm heading with it at the moment.
Okay.
And I think that's probably the way it's going to be in the future as Google gets more and more savvy with spammy links.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's exactly what we do. We do Harrow Connectively, so expert quote links we do for clients. We also do digital PR campaigns, but this is all homepage authority building links. So I'm interested to know then if that's sort of enough in this space to just build up the actual overall authority of the website, and then that lifts all of your other on-page, off-page SEO efforts, and it's going to start lift those highly targeted keywords that you're after. Or if you're actually doing any, I mean, you said you haven't had luck with outreach for sort of inner page links. I think a trick you're missing is you're not putting boobs in the subject line maybe, but are you finding there's no need for inner page link building and you can just do it all from homepage authority?
I think that it's a case of, what is it they say? A rising tide lifts all ships. Yeah. So if you get homepage links, fantastic, it lifts the whole thing. Obviously, if you can get links to those inner pages, that's great. But that's also really quite a tricky thing to do. So given the choice between no link and a homepage link, I would definitely go for a homepage link every single time. Yeah,
and I think you have that. I mean, we've got nothing against any other sort of link building, but just from like client agency relationship, client freelance relationship, you do have that worry if you start doing anything outside of like what could be quote unquote white hat. That where do you identify where the issue has been caused? We've heard about manual actions in recent months and link spam penalties. So yeah, I suppose it's a much safer approach just to go for that homepage authority building. That's really interesting though. So are you finding then that with just that sort of link building that you're having still, even after we've had these updates? Well, I suppose the first question would be, have you noticed any effects for individual clients from recent updates, and how have you found the Google leak to have been informing your SEO going into the future?
Interesting question. So I would say almost all of my clients were unaffected. A couple of them plateaued for a couple of weeks. One of them dropped down, but that was, I think, because they had old blog posts written way before I got there. It was like that when I got here, which were doing, they sell medical products and they were doing best of type articles.
Oh, okay. So very much an affiliate quiff.
Yeah, kind of, but it wasn't affiliate. It was funny the way they'd set it up. So they did see some downwards trend, which is now reversing, thankfully. But yeah, thankfully mine have managed to weather the storm without any major issues. And then as far as the Google algo leak, I think it confirms a lot of things that a lot of people have suspected for a long time. There were definitely some things in there that it's like everything, you hear arguments for, arguments against, and then the algo leak came out and it's like, oh, well, maybe that does exist, or maybe that does happen. Like you were mentioning before with disavows, I don't think it confirms anything. It's kind of like finding a plane wreck and going, well, this piece could do this and it could do that.
It's a good analogy.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like we've got the pieces, but we still don't know exactly how it all goes together. But we do have the pieces, and it's nice to know that for those people that are saying this is part of the plane, that actually, yes, that is part of the algorithm. Now it's just a case of working out to what extent it's being used, I suppose.
Yeah. For us, I think it was there was an element of validation in the quality of the link in the section where it talked about links from tier 1 publications and on fresh pages, which is essentially digital PR, either from Harrow Expert Quote or running actual campaigns. So I think it just further gives credence to the fact that is a preferable sort of link to build. And we've done really well with a number of medical clients, actually. And I think the two things probably go hand in hand, because if you have a real business with good EAT, good content, actual doctors, physical address, Google business profile, all of these things, and then you throw into that really nice, sexy, gorgeous links, it's almost like you can't fail. You are really setting yourself up for success, which is what Google wants, isn't it? It wants good content from trustworthy sources. So I think as you say, that seems like a very similar approach to what you're taking.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I kind of always look at it as your on page and your content is like the spaceship, like the shuttle, and then the links are like the boosters, which are really going to propel you higher. The links are what's going to take you to the next level, because content and on page will only take you so far before you need those links to really compete. So yeah, I completely agree. If you can get those naturally, I think that that's the ideal situation, really.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, before we wrap up, a couple more things. I just wanted to ask about, in terms of local, because it's really interesting. I think local SEO, a really, really interesting area. I want to talk about, are you noticing any differences with the AI overviews? And if that's not fully rolled out across that sector in our location yet, when it is fully rolled out, whatever that will look like, obviously Google keeps doing back and forth on what it's going to do. How do you think that's going to affect local healthcare SEO?
Great question. So Google are on record as saying that they don't want to be the final destination. They want to point people to those that are medically qualified and can actually help the searcher, which is obviously a big relief for me, because it means that there's always going to be a job, which is cool. I don't know how much AI overviews are going to affect things. Like you say, obviously they rolled it out, they rolled it back again.
Yeah.
A lot. I guess it went from something like 40% to 17% or something. I haven't seen it hasn't changed things a great deal for me yet. Obviously that could change in the future, but I think the problem is you can tie yourself up in knots trying to work out what's going to happen next. I would much rather wait and see a little bit which direction it's going and then adapt to it. Maybe that's wrong, but I've seen Google do a lot of different things in the past where they've tried stuff out and then just ditched it. And it's kind of like, I feel bad for the people that spent a lot of time and a lot of effort trying to work it out, and then it's just gone. I remember before, probably you do too, when AMP was like the big thing.
Get AMP on your site quick.
Otherwise it's going to be Armageddon. Or voice search was going to be a massive thing, or Core Web Vitals was going to be a massive thing. And these come and they go, and I know that AI overviews and AI generally is going to change the game, but I think personally it's better to just hold back a little bit and just wait and see, because Google's still going to be sending traffic to websites. So I'm just going to have a watch and wait approach for the time being.
Yeah, well, I mean, that brings me to my final part, which was I wanted to just quickly chat about your views on the future. We were quite heavily involved in the affiliate space, and obviously that took a bit of a battering in with recent updates. A lot of people are talking about, I think there was an incorrectly released statement that Google had lost a few percentage market share to Bing, but there was a problem with the stats and it hadn't. We are seeing people searching in different ways, obviously the rise of social, TikTok, YouTube, and then just asking and talking to AI directly, be it through ChatGPT or platforms like Perplexity. Do you fear for the near to medium term future in the ways specifically people within the health sector are going to be searching to find information? I can personally say I still use Google for health searches because I just want to find a site that looks 100% trustworthy, and then I'll just trust the content. Even though I love Perplexity and I will use it for a million things, I wouldn't use it for that. I'm interested to know your opinion, what you're seeing, where you think we'll go in the future.
Really interesting question again. Where do I think it will go in the future? Who knows? Who knows? It's all speculation, isn't it? Google do a fantastic job. They have done for a long time. They've got a massive market share, like you say. That may be eroding a tiny bit, but from what I understand, the adoption of ChatGPT is gradually plateauing. I think that it hasn't put a massive dent in Google yet, as far as we know. Obviously, Google are very worried and they're pivoting and they're doing everything is AI now. But I think you're right. I think people want to use what they're familiar with. And so that is Google. So they're more than happy to use Google for searching their medical symptoms. I think that may change in the future potentially. But I think that the end result of having to see a clinician is going to be the same. So wherever people are, whatever they're searching for, or whatever platform they're using to search, they're still going to end up in the same place. So it's just a case of working out, okay, if everybody moves across to ChatGPT or Perplexity, how can we help them find what they're looking for there instead? All these models are trained on the internet, so there's no reason why it shouldn't be optimizable. Who knows? And I know, I think it was Sam Altman was talking about creating a free browser search engine, which is ad-free. I could be getting this wrong, but that seemed to be really exciting to me because that's like an SEO's dream, just no ads, it's all organic, ranking that, away we go.
Yeah.
Whether that turns out to be the case, I'm not sure. But yeah, I think the destination is still going to be the same for people. So it's just a case of working out how you can get them to that destination and helping them to get there. So I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Yeah, and I suppose it's just staying ahead of the game, see what's coming, be ready to adapt, shift, and move into the areas where people are. I mean, if I find a lump in a weird place, I know I'm not going to go on TikTok and search for that. That's for sure. But Google's got my search. It's safer now.
Yeah, just don't use visual search, perhaps.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Geoff, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. If anybody wants to find you or contact you, where's the best place they can reach out?
LinkedIn's usually where I'm most active, or healthcare-seo.co.uk is my website.
Okay. Well, Geoff, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you, Chris.